Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Excited to be back to the happiest place in the US. Nestled between the Rockies and the reality, the fourth time around. In these critical times, the penetrating intercultural dialogue exchange speaks deeply to individuals and gives rise to the joy of community, and we invite you to join us in examining the human experience through the reflections and imaginations of distinguished contemporary authors from across the globe. In an uplifting celebration of the mind and heart, writers and thinkers from the Americas, Asia, Africa, and Europe will take part in provocative conversations about life and society, economics and the arts, equity, freedom, and the care of our planet. So let's come together to celebrate the word with JLF at Boulder in association with Boulder Library Foundation, the City of Boulder, and the Boulder Public Library. Please join me in welcoming the festival producer and managing director Team Wakat, Sanjoy Roy, to come up on stage and share his vision.
Thank you so much. As our plane approached Denver, looking down at the lands of our ancestors, of the land of the Arapaho, you could actually think of all the millions of stories that must have played themselves out across these plains. JLF is really a celebration of both the written and the spoken word. It's a celebration of stories that we pass on either through book or through voice, generation after generation, bringing us together, binding us together, making the difference between us being human beings and empathetic and the others who are not. In these somewhat strange times, where words are not necessarily spoken with any due consideration by our leaders, not just here, but in other parts of the world, it is even more important for each one of us, our speakers, our writers, our storytellers, to stand up and have their words count. By being silent, today, we are complicit. The world around us is full of strangeness, or wars against people unknown, about enormous acts of hate against each one of us, against those who own nothing, are not networked, have no access. And it's again each one of our responsibility, because we've had the education, we have the resources, and most importantly, we have the influence. And by speaking up, we also come together. As the world becomes smaller through internet and through communication, people are feeling more and more frightened and scared of the other. Governments are building walls around their cities. People are feeling threatened. And the only way to be able to break through these boundaries is through our stories, individual and collective. It is for this reason that we feel an impulse to spread the word in so many different places. We're delighted that the Jaipur Literature Festival has over 123 different editions, not just JLF, and these people have taken inspiration from everything that's happened in the making of the festival. And it's allowed more and more speakers and authors and people with ideas to come together. And we're hoping that that makes a difference. Yes, it's not easy. Yes, the world is a difficult place. But when we celebrate, when you go into a session and you hear an author or a speaker and you're able to connect, it's an elevation of the soul and the heart. Yesterday in New York, which was one of our first iterations at the Asia Society. A professor from Columbia came up to me at the end and said, you know, we attend so many of these conferences, but for the first time in my 40 years, do I feel elevated? Do I feel absolutely full of love and empathy? And I think that's what this festival does, and that's what each of you coming together here does. So on behalf of my colleagues, Suraj and Sharupa, and all of us at Teamwork, and our festival directors, Namitha Gokhale and William Dalrymple, and the Boulder Library, I'd like to first thank all our wonderful authors for just writing, for being able to do that. Absolutely. For that selfless task of being able to give of themselves. And one has always said that authors write not necessarily only to entertain, they write because they have a volition to write. And in that writing, they tell us about the past, they try and make sense of the present, and they sort of crystal gaze and give us the future. So thank you. Some of you haven't received your rooms at the hotel today. I run many apologies for that, and I hope that will be rectified by the time you get back. For those of you sitting outside who haven't been able to come into the hall, that too is a celebration, because I remember on the first year we were like, will people come here? And today they do. So thank you all so much for gathering here in Boulder. To David and his team at the Boulder Library, who have embraced us and given us so much, thank you. And hopefully this story continues to unfold in what is and has to be one of the most important institutions in each city and each town. And may your tribe grow, and may you prosper, and may your budgets grow. To the mayor and the city of Boulder, by supporting the festival, it's not just about supporting an arts project. It's about knowledge, it's about education, it's about understanding the other. And by doing all of that, we're able to bridge that gap. Again, we've always said, the only way to bring about change in society, in spaces, in societies where there is inequity, is through education and knowledge. So thank you and the city of Boulder for supporting us. Enjoy the festival. To share some of the programming, please invite festival co-director and programmer of the festival, Namitha Coakley.
It's so wonderful to be back here. Unlike my producer of the festival, Sanjoy or William, I can't just begin and speak. I have to look at a piece of paper. I hope you'll excuse those anxieties. Of all the festivals I program, and there are many of them around the world now, there are two that are perhaps the closest to my heart. The first is Boulder, and the second one is Bhutan. And there is no coincidence in the fact that they share so many energies and synergies. To begin, I would like to quote from a Sanskrit shloka, which is like a personal mantra for me. It says, Satyam Shivam Sundaram. It is to the god Shiva, the creator and the destroyer, and the fount of all creativity. Satyam is the true, Shivam is the transformative, and Sundaram is the beautiful. There are so many people in the audience who've watched this festival grow and our other festivals grow. We have, for example, Margot Jefferson back for her second time here, but we've not had her in Jaipur yet. The flights get cancelled or problems turn up. There is Suketu Mehta, who was there in the very, very first year of Jaipur and borrowed a black shawl from me in the cold weather, and he's back here, and I'm sure it'll get cold in the evening. There just are so many friends as one walks into the Boulder Public Library. American narratives, Indian American narratives, American Indian narratives, Latino, Mexican, African stories, they come together. And Jessie, I cannot thank Jessie enough for all that she does through the year in suggesting people, suggesting sessions that would work here, reaching out to people, and my absolute gratitude for that. So as we gather beside the Whispering Creek to celebrate the arts, to listen into writers and thinkers, to investigate and interrogate our changing world, you will find in the next 2.5 days, you'll encounter the personal and the political, the meaning of everything to a conspiracy of bones. You will have Michael Jackson, you'll have the Mughal Empress Noor Jahan. We will map the heavens and the high Himalayas. And so, in this weekend of journeys across time and place, language and culture, subjects and situations, I can't begin to list them all out, but do look at the program, and I will hear the usual complaint in the cafe overlooking the creek, which is, we don't know where to go. That's what happens. This joyous spontaneity, democratic spirit, and rigorous programming are the authentic hallmark of our festival, which has transformed the perception of South Asian writing and its place in the world. We have editions of the British Library in the British Library in London, in New York, this year in Houston, an edition in Adelaide. We are deeply grateful for the warmth, the affection, the engagement we've received from the community of book lovers here in Boulder and around. We just join us. Too many words in the beginning will spoil the taste of the wonderful days ahead. Thank you very much.
Now, may I please invite the other co-director of the festival, William Dalrymple, to come on stage.
I always make the same speech here, but the story is worth retelling. When we first went to Diggy Palace, we were terrified that no one would turn up, and we were very grateful and slightly surprised when 15 Japanese people trooped in. And they turned out to be tourists looking for Amer Fort. But they made up 15 out of the 18 people in the room, so we were very grateful. This year we just passed 500,000, and it's now, I think, formally the largest literary festival on the planet. As one of those talking heads on the video said, this is an age when we hear that everyone's on their phones, that books are dying, that publishers are struggling, bookshops and libraries closing. And one of the wonders of Jaipur is that it is that sheer scale. The fact that 500,000 people turn up to hear authors and books and come for literature is an extraordinary thing. And it shows that although the forms of literature may change and people may be reading on their Kindles rather than in their paperbacks or whatever it is, literature and books and ideas and the thought and all the things that go into the literary world are still as important as ever. One of my favorite things always in Jaipur is going down to the railway station. And there, of an evening, you often find 200 or 300 kids who've traveled perhaps from Tamil Nadu or Assam several days on trains, dodging fares and so on. And they can't afford a hostel, but they're there on the platform. And they've come for nothing else but to meet their favorite authors and to hear discussions on literature. And it's an extraordinary thing. Since then, as Sanjoy says, I think it's nearly 200 other literary festivals have sprung up in India. And it's now something that even quite small cities have 2 or 3 rival literary festivals. And so it's a wonderful thing. We're very, very grateful. And this sort of way that we're turning into Starbucks with a franchise in every town from Australia to the Rockies is itself a miracle. So thank you very much for putting up with us. Thank you.
Thank you, Namitha. Thank you, William, for making the festival happen. They've worked day and night. They put heart and soul to ensure the programming is right. So thank you very much for all your work. May I invite one of our festival authors, Simon Winchester, to come on stage and say a few words.
Thanks very much. I only really thought of this when I saw that marvellous film a few minutes ago. I attended the January 2016 festival, and it was amazing, and I felt the 500,000, the presence of them, or nearly 500,000. It was quite extraordinary. So anyway, I came back, and I live in New York, but on this particular occasion, it was, I think, May, later in the year, and I was in Oxford doing some research for a new book of mine, and then I had to go, so it's a Thursday, I think, and I had to go to Amsterdam for the day. So I'm catching the bus from Oxford down to Heathrow Airport, and I'm standing, I don't know if you know the geography of Oxford, but basically there's the main bus station, which is in Gloucester Green, and then there's a bus stop outside Queen's College. And I was standing outside Queen's, waiting for the bus to London, and suddenly two young men were walking towards me. They were clearly from India, and they were wearing suits and ties, white shirts, and I thought they were Mormon missionaries. And I stepped into the shadows hoping they weren't coming to speak to me, but they did come to speak to me, and I said, oh my God, this is going to be awful. But they said, no, we're not Mormon missionaries. I said, are you Mormon missionaries? They said, no, we're not missionaries at all. We were at the Jaipur festival, and we both got your books, and you signed them for us, so we just wanted to say thank you. So I thought that was charming. The story goes on, I'm afraid, and I won't take up your time. So I took the bus, went down to Heathrow, got on the plane to Amsterdam, spent the night, came back. So fast forward to the Sunday, so 3 days later, and this time I'm now leaving Oxford to go down to stay in a club I belong to in London, and then I'm going back to New York where I live. So this time I go to Gloucester Green, the bus station, because I have a big, heavy piece of luggage, and the taxi driver drops me, and the 10 o'clock bus, they go every 15 minutes, and he said, we're just pulling out, do you want to get on this bus? And I said, well, no, I think I'll have a cup of coffee. So there was a Costa Coffee place. So I went to the Costa Coffee, and at 9 or 10 minutes past, I come out, there is the bus, and I put my bag into the hold under the seats, and a rather familiar voice says, hello, Simon. And I look up, and it's one of those two chaps, again, one of the other half of the non-Mormon missionaries. So he said, are you going to London? I said, yes, bags in the bus. He said, well, so am I. I said, great. So we sat together, and I cannot imagine having had, the journey takes about an hour, the most interesting hour of conversation I have had for years. He was wonderful, loquacious, intelligent, interested, curious. He'd never been to England before, and he and his co-non-missionary person were both attending at the law school in Oxford a course on intellectual property. So we talk about that, and we talk about other things. And then the bus, as you may know, when it arrives in London, it stops first at Marble Arch and then goes down to Victoria Coach Station. So he says, I say, I have to get out at Marble Arch because I'm going over to my club. And he says, well, I'm going to stay on till Victoria Coach Station because I want to see Buckingham Palace and I want to see various... So I give him one or two additional things to see. And then he says, I'm going back on the 8 o'clock flight to Delhi, saying goodbye to England after this amazing week, nearly always in Oxford, and having met you. It's a great delight. So I go to my club, and I think, right, well, that's that. What a nice encounter. And I think, I'm going to do nothing. I've been talking every day, so I'm just going to have a bath, get into my bathrobe, watch a bad film on television, and not going to talk to anybody. An email comes in from an American woman I know called Barbara Laureate. She lives in Massachusetts, but she occasionally teaches at Oxford. And she happens to be in England, not merely in Oxford, but in London. Any chance you're in England? I said, I am, by extraordinary chance. Any chance for dinner? So I said, why not, let's have dinner. So the Wolseley restaurant is not too far from my club. So she lives in Wandsworth, so I said, come up to, if you don't mind, an early reservation, because I've got an early flight tomorrow morning. So we get something terribly unfashionable, 6:30 or something like that. I go to a little corner seat. She turns up 5 minutes later. We sit together, have oysters and champagne. And then I said, well, what are you doing here? She's, well, I know. Then I tell her the story of these two amazing Indian guys And she said, wait a minute, was one of them called Preet Bahara? I said, how did you know? She said, I am the reason that they came to England in the first place. I'm the professor that invited them here. They've been attending. I had breakfast with them before I sent them off to the bus. So it ends with, and I've never taken a selfie in my life before, but we took a selfie of ourselves sitting, raising a glass of champagne to the one that was leaving on the 8 o'clock flight to Delhi. We send it to the picture to him immediately, and we almost immediately afterwards get a telephone call from him. He said, I'm on the plane. We're just leaving for Delhi. They're telling us to switch off our cell phones, but I've just had your picture, and all I can say to you, Simon, is I am going to die. So, yay, Jaipur.
Thank you, Simon, for giving us this wonderful story and being part of the festival. Encouraging and believing in the festival's concept, the city has played a key role in opening many doors for us and constantly believing in the power of dialogue. Let's put our hands together to welcome the Mayor of City of Boulder, Suzanne Jones.
No, thank you. It has all been said, but I'm going to say it again. And that is, on behalf of our city, on behalf of the entire Boulder City Council, we are absolutely thrilled to welcome the Z Jaipur Literature Festival to Boulder for the 4th time. We are in for an absolute treat. And I want to pause and thank the producers, the performers, the creatives who put this all together, the people that have brought it here, and thank them in advance for the cultural feast we are about to enjoy. Thank you. I also want to acknowledge our Director of Arts and Library, David Farnan, and the Boulder Public Library for hosting this. One of the key values of the festival is that it's free and accessible to everyone. And that is a shared value in Boulder, and it is epitomized by our public library, where knowledge should always be free and accessible to everyone. So thank you to David and for the festival. I just want to say that we are very honored to have been chosen again to host this festival. I mean, what an absolute delight to have, 70 authors come here to our city to share their ideas and to have provocative conversations. And I'll acknowledge that it's not even just storytelling in written word. It's dance and it's music and it's slam poetry and it's a cultural extravaganza, and we recognize how blessed we are to be a part of this. And I'll just note that Boulder is known for its outdoor setting, right? The beauty, the scenery, and our love of it and our protection of it. You know, we're known for sustainability, and that's an important part of who we are. We also have some deep cultural roots. As you saw testament to at the beginning of this ceremony, we are on the ancestral lands of the Arapaho and many other American Indian tribes. And that cultural thread runs through the many different immigrant populations that moved to this country and settled here. And then through the fact that we became the host to the University of Colorado and Europa University. And so this thread of culture continues. And I think festivals like this help us to continue to weave it and to build upon it and to celebrate it. I am reminded of the words of Wallace Stegner. I'm sure you've heard of Wallace Stegner. Okay, so he talked about the West as being the native home of hope. And I'm going to take that concept and build on it and just say that he believed that when the West, the people of the West figured out their culture and collaboration instead of just rugged individualism, but coming together as community, that then we would finally have a society to match our scenery. Right? Isn't that a lovely phrase? And so I think that's the work of this weekend, or the play of this weekend, is that we can continue to grow and build the richness of our society to match the glory of this wonderful setting. So, and I will note, as has been said, that these are interesting times. These are scary times, and we need community and connection more than we ever have. And so I think this will be like a cool drink of water, us coming together and sharing perspectives and cultures and deep, provocative thinking. So we need this as a community, we need it as a country, we need it as a planet, and I thank all of you and the festival for participating and bringing it here. Thank you.
Thank you, Suzanne, for hosting us in your beautiful, beautiful city. Thank you very much. And none of this would have been possible without a venue that supports the arts, history, business, policy, and most importantly, is the hub for community interaction and culture. Supporting, endorsing, and motivating us for the last 4 editions of the festival, we owe our gratitude to Boulder Public Library. May I please invite David Farnan, Director of Library and Arts, to come on stage and share a few words with us.
Good afternoon, welcome back, welcome to Boulder Public Library. Libraries are, as I'm oft fond of saying, the last great unbroken promise of a democratic society. And I say that without irony, I say that without any shame. I truly believe that the fact that we are free and open to all and allow for thinking of diverse types is a critical kind of function in our society. And for that, it wouldn't happen without you. Because a community builds a library. I don't build a library. The city doesn't build a library. A community builds a library. And it's the community coming together to share their resources, to share their knowledge, to share their love of lifelong learning that makes it so. So thank you all very much. I wish also to thank all of the sponsors of the festival, and I think they've all been named. It's been truly a wonderful experience for us. I'm honored that we're here in our 4th year. I see a lot of familiar faces in the audience. I see some new faces, so for you new faces, you are in for a treat. For you familiar faces, we're beginning to create memories, and that's really a kind of a wonderful thing because those memories lead to a sense, again, of holding things together as a community, and I so deeply appreciate that. I think the only other group that I really want to thank that I don't believe has been mentioned yet is the hundreds of volunteers who make this event happen. I don't know how many hundreds of them there are, but they're a committed and awesome bunch of people. My library commission, the Library Foundation, Jessie Friedman and JLF at Colorado has masterfully gathered together a ton of volunteers. So some of you may be in the audience, and I appreciate it and thank you all very much as well. Have a great weekend. This Saturday and this evening, Saturday, Sunday, it's such a wonderful festival. It's a great place for the community to come together to share and discuss, and please take advantage of it. So thank you very much.
Thank you, David. I know that he had to run at 3:45, and sorry if we delayed you a bit, but please be aware that we love you, we love this library, we love all your staff, so thank you very much for hosting us here. An initiative undertaken by the lovely Jessie, Marutha, and Jules, who visited our mothership property in Jaipur 6 years ago and fell in love with the idea and went to all lengths to bring the festival in this beautiful city. They made a number of trips to India, con calls, identified venues, discovered local sponsors and partners, and finally convinced us to introduce the festival in Boulder. May I please invite Executive Director, JLF at Boulder, Jessie Friedman, to come up on stage and take it forward from here.
This might be a little repetitive, but I think it's worth repeating. Thank you all for coming to the 4th annual JLF at Boulder, Colorado, an unimaginable occurrence still. I think about what we've done, the magic, the depth, the inexpressible wonder this festival brings, and I continually reflect on what is it? What is this palpable, astonishing joy from attending a literature festival? A sense of thunder in our hearts, the awe, a sense of arriving, of even relief, of coming home, of drinking from the wellspring, of what? Of knowledge, of awareness, of our being. Ralph Waldo Emerson said that a good writer has her eye always on the, on the thread of the universe that runs through herself and all things. I don't know exactly what it is, but for a few moments, an echoing hunger we invariably carry around is satiated. Our thirst is quenched, and we relax. We feel the ethers of humanity, and it seems multitudes, appreciate this beyond all words. Thank you for quenching our thirst, reminding us it can be done and how it is done. Maybe Emily Dickinson sums it up this way: I know nothing in the world that has as much power as a word. Sometimes I write one, and I look at it until it begins to shine. Thank you, writers, for bringing us so much brilliant light and illumination to our lives, to the world, for your courage and strength, perseverance, and great generosity in doing so, for sharing this light with all of us this weekend here in Boulder. Thank you, Namita, William, and Sanjoy, my beloved Teamwork Arts crew, my Boulder team, our volunteers. And I'm going to thank our sponsors who really do make this possible. A free festival is free to attendees, but it is not free to produce, of course. So thank you to the Boulder Library Foundation, who has been a phenomenally generous sponsor for all 4 years. To the Boulder Public Library, David Farnan, Mike Eubank, our coordinator from the city of Boulder, the incredible staff of the Boulder Public Library, who devote days year-round out of their already overflowing work schedule to help bring JLF to Boulder, Colorado. We'd like to thank the City of Boulder, Rajasthan Tourism, Multimedia Audiovisual, Bhakti Chai, the Tibet Himalaya Initiative, Naropa University, the Consulate General of Canada in Denver, Shambhala Publications, CBS4, Brock Media, KGNU, Yellow Scene. And with all this enormous generosity from these various foundations, the city, corporations, we still need to fund our deficit. We still need to make sure that this festival can be sustainable here. So you will be hearing suggestions and words that we would welcome donations right now throughout the weekend, and let's see if we can make this an annual event here in Boulder, Colorado. Thank you, everybody.